Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the TMC Water Cooler. It's another fine week. With me today, I have Hendrik Tallardar, of course, and one of our senior editors, June Ting. And we have a number of topics to talk about today. Most of them not related to Eve because it's the calm before the storm right now. But we've got some Eve stuff to talk about. So to start off, though, let's talk about what we've been playing. So, June, have you been playing any games recently that you want to talk about?
Not especially. I have mostly been playing Eve because I am currently in the middle of doing the sky marshalling of taking catch with the rest of Hero. Besides that, most recently I have been playing Don't Starve, but I haven't had time to do that in the past week or two.
How's the sky marshalling going? Because I've been noticing Hero's been pretty active. They took a couple systems in catch and are getting some good grinding going in. And I think you guys are pushing into Pravi, right?
No, no Pravi. At the moment, we kind of just have to lick wounds and make sure that everything is settled with regard to catch, which should take a couple of weeks at least before we think about doing anything else. But we do expect to finish the grinding of catch within the next 2 weeks, which will be nice to finally no longer be at war after a period of about 2 months of continuously contesting in catch.
So I've been playing a little bit of Watch Dogs because it just came out, and it's a pretty okay game. I'm enjoying it. It's interesting just as a destination game where the game has like a million small activities for you to engage in, more so than GTA 4, about on par with GTA 5, I'd say. Where like you just boot up the game and you don't even really know what you're doing. You just kind of walk around, hack people, collect money, that kind of thing. And then I've also been playing a bunch of fighting games, specifically Super Street Fighter 4 Arcade Edition just got ported over to Steamworks, and they put up a big sale for it, with all the DLC and everything for $12. And I've been practicing my Hadoukens and Shoryukens and all that stuff, and I've been just kind of digging the simplicity of fighting games after dealing with all these strategy games and stuff. So, what about you, Hendrik?
I also played some Watch Dogs. I did the review on it. I found the single player to be kind of lackluster, but the multiplayer is really good, so I've basically been sticking with that. Um, Also got to play some Elite Dangerous now that that's out in beta. It's a really good game, and I'll mention it a bit on one of our topics later. And also, Stomping Land came out on Friday, which has been a very good Daisy type game. It's a survival game where you're basically in a land full of dinosaurs as a travel human. That's a lot of fun, actually. And uh, I think that's it as far as games I've been playing. I booted up Sleeping Dogs the other day and played a bit of that just for old time's sake.
Sleeping Watch Dogs. I really wish that Watch Dogs and Sleeping Dogs were the same game, because if they were, that would be where like Sleeping Dogs has this big emphasis on like dealing with factions and building reputation and like melee combat, and then combine that with the hacking and sort of open world activity stuff of Watch Dogs. That'd be pretty much like my ideal open world game. Like don't no guns, just punching the hell out of people and being awesome. But
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the Sleeping Dogs sequel, Triad Wars, if and when that ever comes out. I think they're still in. They announced it back in October, so they're still working on it. But I'm looking forward to that game because Sleeping Dogs was no pun intended. It was a sleeper game until it came out. Ah,
yeah,
but yeah,
so tell me about Elite Dangerous. You said you've been playing the beta, so what's up with this? Like it just entered premium beta like Friday, so
yeah. So Elite Dangerous is a nice game. I never really played the original Elite games, and I don't know why I bought into the premium beta. I think just for the sake of, I'll buy into it, get me some content, and I can try out some things that I really wanted to try out in a game. Uh, I like to say that the controls are odd, like the default controls, and I haven't changed them, but it's doable. I really like the travel system because warping between systems and all that fun stuff is really cool. And there's been some videos out on it. Scott Manley has done a couple, and he does some stuff with us on the site.
I have a quick question
Uh,
on traveling between systems. Is it like is it like you have a radius for your warp drive, and then you select the system within that radius, and you warp
I don't
to
know.
it?
I didn't really get that. I didn't get really that far into it because I kept shooting things that I probably shouldn't have been shooting and kept dying. Um, but our former contributor, Doink9731, or just Doink, he's playing it, and I think he got up to like 15,000 credits, which is he basically survived and didn't do stupid things like I did. I don't know. It's a good game. It's probably not worth $150 for some people. I think it's just $150 if you really want to play a space game in the vein of, like the X series, Star Citizen, to some regard, or if you really like the original Elite games. Since I pulled out of my backing for Star Citizen, I'm totally fine with Elite Dangerous. The multiplayer is kind of interesting. Because I can't always tell who's another player, like right off the bat. And other than that, it's been fine. I've been hearing some things about like the servers aren't really supporting, that many players. There's lag, there's delays and stuff like that. But it's a beta, so I'm okay with it.
Actually, the whole players as NPCs thing is pretty interesting because, like we were talking about, Watch Dogs multiplayer is really cool, and it does that, right? Where like the enemy players, whenever they invade you, are basically NPCs. And
they show up as an NPC to the other player in that area.
Actually, both of you show up as NPCs. One person shows up, like, it randomly picks a model. It's interesting. And then, like, in Dark Souls, right, you have the red phantoms and that stuff. So it's interesting making it so that, like, you can't really tell whether or not somebody is an NPC or a player. I kind of like that.
Yeah. But yeah, but all the games I've been playing lately are nice. I'm really digging the Stomping Land, and for a game that only wanted $20,000 as Kickstarter and got like $120,000, it's doing some pretty cool stuff, and it's using Unreal Engine really well. But so let's move on to some of our predefined topics.
Well, we already hit Elite Dangerous, so
let's talk about a game that also has had a lot of troubles, especially with feature creep, and promises that weren't ever really met. MechWarrior Online. Teg, since you're more of a MWO Uber nerd, why don't you do the story on this?
Fuck off. So MechWarrior Online, I'm to give a brief rundown for the few people that read the site that haven't paid attention to our MechWarrior Online articles. Had a lot of promise.
To be fair, though, like, did they say that it crashes the game
continually
anytime?
dragged down by terrible design
because,
decisions.
There are corner cases. Doing
General
testing is hard.
Bad behavior on the part of the developers. Things like insulting their fan base and going forward with stuff despite pretty widespread criticism and stuff like that. Like, generally, they're doing well, but they've lost most of their original fan base. And what we're talking about today is the latest in a long line of controversies. Basically, they're the former community manager for MechWarrior Online, Garth Earlham. Pretty cool dude. Kind of got stuck with a bad job in that he was a community manager for a company that sort of actively hated its community. He stepped down last year, or earlier this year, and a forum moderator, Nico Snow, his real name is like Nikolai something. It's Polish, I think. But anyway, Nico Snow stepped in. He's the most infamous forum moderator for MechWarrior Online because he actively stifles dissent. He deletes posts, he bans posters, regardless of the criticism that they're leveling at the game or the toxicity of the way they say things. He's just generally like, if you're not sort of softly filleting MechWarrior Online at every opportunity, then Nico Snow will come in and kill your criticism. So your criticism has to be surrounded on all sides by sugarcoating and PGI praise. Anyway, he, in a thing recently, he said that basically the MechWarrior Online Reddit which a lot of drama about that, but basically he classified that entire Reddit and everybody in it as horrible trolls that just want to destroy PGI and destroy the game, and that basically you don't have anything to worry about with being forum moderated if you aren't a shit. And these people just want to destroy the game, and they're horrible. And in doing so, pitted the MacWarrior Online Reddit against its spin-off Reddit, which is Outreach Hyperpulse Generator, Outreach APG, which is sort of exactly the opposite, where MWO subreddit is very negative. Outreach APG is almost annoyingly positive, and it caused quite a lot of controversy, and Nico Snow had to do a public apology, and it all boils down to this. PGI does not know how to manage their community, and I don't think they understand how to develop a game continually. And this is just the latest in a long line of symptoms of that problem. Because Nico Snow should not be a community manager. He shouldn't even be a moderator. Maybe have him just be like a community support guy, but he should not be given any sense of power because he abuses it pretty consistently. Russ Bullock generally ignores criticism, as does the lead designer Paul Inoue, or Inuye, or I don't know how to say his last name. But this is just, it's endemic of the problem with PGI and MacWarrior Online, where they have a few really great staffers, but they're dragged down by the public-facing personalities. So, yeah, that's the MacWarrior Online situation. Do you have any comments, Hendrik or June?
So a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, I actually used to do some degree of community support for a little MMO called Puzzle Pirates, and yeah, I can say that, it was definitely not something that you did to just, stomp on people that weren't saying positive things, and it was much better to just listen to people and, to accept their criticism if they had something bad to say. So it's kind of very, very surprising to see that, a community just that a game studio let one of their community managers just run rampant like that.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's not something you do you as a company. Don't let one of your employees do that and get away with it. Hopefully there's some sort of reprimanding on the part of PGI, like behind the scenes, but from what I've seen, Nico, of his own free will, issued an apology that was also like, well, it's not really an apology, it's more of a, I wasn't really talking in general. Specifically, I was really pissed off by a couple of specific people, and yeah, my opinion still stands. And again, it's not something you as a company want to happen, especially with enough of the controversies and issues that PGI have had with MWO. It's just bad form. It's kind of like the whole Star Citizen situation with the female gamer group. It's not something you want, and the response and quote-unquote clarification didn't really help.
It especially didn't help because it was sort of like, I'm sorry that I did this, but I'm not actually sorry. Like, it's not really an apology. It's more of a clarification. When really, like, Nico should legitimately apologize for not just characterizing all these people that are concerned about MacWarrior Online, because I enjoy MacWarrior Online. I also hate MacWarrior Online. Like, I'm the kind of person that he's talking about where I'm heavily critical of the direction that PGI is taking the game, and I've actually been forum banned and had posts deleted that were critical of the game. And characterizing me as a troll, or characterizing people like me as trolls, when really I desperately want to like MacWarrior Online. I spent $200 on it back when I got the Founders Pack and the Phoenix Pack and stuff. And if they manage to listen to my criticisms and accept them, and instead of just blindly powering ahead, just trying out some of these alternative viewpoints, and not just people like me, but like other nicer people have brought up, then things would be okay. But it's kind of an echo chamber problem where PGI, at least to us, it feels like they aren't really interested in listening to what people have to say, which you desperately have to if you're trying to make a free-to-play game. There's a reason why Warframe is doing exceedingly well. I've spent, I mean, this is embarrassing. I've spent like $300 to $400 on Warframe, right? I don't regret any of the money I've spent on Warframe because it's really good. The developers listen to me and they're moving forward with design decisions that make sense and are enjoyable. So I don't know. It's a tough situation. I know for sure that Nico Snow should not be the community manager, though.
Yeah, that was a really, some of the stuff he said was just really like, as a community manager, you don't want someone to say something like that. Like, as the community manager, you're not supposed to say something like that in public, on behalf of your company.
Yeah, for sure.
And
He was actually laid off from the PGS publisher, IGP, Infinite Game Publishing, I think they're called, as their community manager because he just wasn't a fit, and then he became just like a forum mod for PGI, and then was elevated to community manager. It was a bad decision on the part of PGI to allow somebody with such a unthinking personality, I guess, to take over the community manager role. And to do an awesome segue here, speaking of doing dumb things in public, the Watch Dogs PR thing. So you want to take over that, Hendrik?
Yeah, I mean, sure, why not? So, a advertising firm for Ubisoft that were hired to do Watch Dogs promotional events did something really stupid in which they sent a unmarked box to a Australian news agency in which a suspicious letter, quote unquote, was sent to the reporter with instructions to check a voicemail, which she personally did not receive. And when she tried to open the safe, which was the box that she was sent, it started to beep. And she then freaked out, thought it was a bomb, called the bomb squad. And it turned out to be just a safe with a free copy of Watch Dogs, a couple of hats, and a note saying that, she's not really supposed to open it before 5 p.m. The day she received it, just because of, I guess, review embargoes or some silly thing like that. It's kind of similar to the freakouts with like the Aqua Teen Hunger Force signs in like Boston a couple years ago. It's just a really dumb thing to do. Like, there was an easy way to kind of send something. In my mind, there's an easy way to send something with the same kind of like motif and like, oh, what the hell is this? Mystery to it, without causing someone to think that their life is in danger. It's just a dumb thing to do. So maybe someone should have spent more than 5 minutes going, yeah, maybe we should probably think about what we're about to do.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that they were trying for something that wasn't particularly smart. Where they should have put just the Watch Dogs logo on the side, or just put Watch Dogs somewhere on the box, so that way they know, oh, it's for a video game. What's in the box? It's a mystery. It's a neat little mystery. But at least they know that it's not like literally an unmarked black box that starts beeping when you touch it. Like, I'd be terrified too.
So I've played Ingress for a while, and I remember hearing hilarious stories about Ingress people playing Ingress getting asked questions by cops because they're walking around government buildings late at night taking pictures of them, or like with their phones emitting beeping noises. So it's kind of definitely one of those areas where if you're doing something that's kind of like augmented, like a ARG, or where you're doing a marketing stunt, like on one hand you kind of have to give a little bit more poetic license and not freak out about minor things. At the same time, yeah, I mean, sending someone a box that beeps is dumb, because that's like, there's no way that you could say, there's any kind of innocent explanation for this that you should kind of give first priority, rather than, oh my god, this is a bomb. So I think that we should kind of be a little bit careful of saying, anything that is, remotely suspicious for a game is something that we should avoid, because there are some legitimate areas where, yes, actually it is kind of cool to sneak around near a government building and, have your phone beeping or whatever.
Yeah. So what is Ingress exactly? Because I never really heard of it.
So Ingress is this, it's this game that is played with your mobile phone, and it has a number of different checkpoints kind of that you can capture for one side, either the Enlightenment or the Resistance. And the idea is basically that you go around hacking other people's portals and putting up portals of your own. And these are all they all coincide with real landmarks, like, like a post office or a library or a piece of artwork. Kind of anything that's in a public location that someone can get to can be one of these portals that is a site that you can contest. So you do that by, having your phone with you, and then your phone's GPS locates you, and then you hit a button to go and attack the portal, or to go and put up
Oh, okay. That sounds actually very similar to Watch Dogs, at least in concept. But like, you go around and just hack things and achieve objectives.
Yeah, well, interestingly enough, the game, I'll give full disclosure that the game is produced by Google. I happen to work for Google. So, yeah, it is a game made by Google. And it's, I don't know what exactly they're doing with whatever data, but people are having fun. I certainly had a lot of fun playing it.
All right, so moving on. EA, or Electronic Arts. Yeah, Electronic Arts are doing some big updates to both Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4. Battlefield 3 is going to be free until June 3rd through Origin, and then after that, you can, if you download it before June 3rd, you can keep it and play it forever. It's the standard version. They're also doing it with Plants vs. Zombies, which was a really good game by PopCap Games back in a couple of years ago. And then for Battlefield 4, they've added microtransactions, because why the fuck not? It's EA. Specifically, it's for battle packs, which give you like cosmetic items and stuff. At most, it's $3 for a gold battle pack, $2 for silver, and $1 for a bronze. But even then, it's a microtransaction.
I'm honestly super surprised that it didn't launch with microtransactions for battle packs, because it's just one of those things that, like, they actually had microtransactions in other games that have battle pack like elements, like Dead Space 3 and Mass Effect 3. But for some reason, Battlefield 4 did not launch with the microtransactions for battle packs. And it was interesting, like, it sort of pulled a bait and switch there. So it's a little disappointing that they're doing it now, but if you've played Battlefield 4 longer than half an hour, you know that you can get battle packs super easy in game. So
yeah, I mean, it's whatever. It's just kind of dumb, because it's like, why you're just trying to nickel and dime, and just say you're nickel and diming it. Don't say it's for the benefit of other players. No, you just want the money. We're not dumb. I mean, maybe some of us are, but
I am, for spending hundreds of dollars.
You spent $300 on MWOs, so,
and $400 or $500 on Warframe. Although I don't regret that.
Yeah.
That I don't regret that purchase. That game's
it's
awesome.
Still kind of
that's still a
certain
lot.
Amount of money to spend.
That is still a lot of money, yeah. And then finally, there's Battlefield Hardline.
I have not read up on anything about that. I heard there was like a leak and shit, but I don't know what it is. Is it just, someone said it was just SWAT, but, or is it like cops versus robbers? Or
yeah, so at least the trailer made it look like it's basically sort of cops versus robbers, terrorists versus counter-terrorists, that kind of thing, instead of being...
So just Counter-Strike. Why not just play Counter-Strike?
Well, instead of... they're probably going to keep the Battlefield motif, right? Where it's this big open battlefield where you shoot people and stuff, as opposed to the more Counter-Strike oriented model of these like specific, like highly detailed maps, like really small, like close quarters engagements.
Yeah, but I would imagine cops versus robbers in any real world situation would be in a small contained area.
Well,
I don't know. Like I don't understand why Battlefield would need the need to do it, other than, well, there's other guys doing it, so we totally have to do it.
I sort of figure that it's along the lines of maybe you're like the DEA or something. And you're fighting against drug lords. So Battlefield Hardline, it looks to be basically cops and robbers. It's not being developed by DICE. It should be noted. It's being developed by Visceral Games, aka
Who are they?
Dead Space, the Dead Space series. That's the big one that they did, and also Dante's Inferno and a bunch of other stuff.
Guys who've never done FPS games before, then?
Pretty much. Well, Visceral was formed from a former FPS studio, so they have done FPS games before, but they haven't made shooters in a while. So it'll be interesting. I expect it'll DICE will step in and it'll be like co-developed between them, sort of splitting the work. Like maybe Visceral will work on the single player and DICE works on the multiplayer, or something like that.
It feels really soon to put out a new Battlefield game, considering that Battlefield 4 has had all these problems for the past couple months.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm wondering if it's like maybe they're thinking of Hardline as like a standalone expansion to BF4.
That'd be interesting, actually.
You know, where like, do you remember Bad Company 2 Vietnam?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, Bad Company 2 Vietnam isn't a standalone expansion, but, you know, it's a much more significant expansion than 4 maps and a couple new guns, right? So, like...
That'd be if they did that, that would make more sense and be more intelligent.
I will always argue that these sorts of shooters, these sorts of persistent first-person shooters should have that sort of model where it's like you buy the base game and then there's a bunch of standalone expansions and stuff, and then, you know, you can just sort of have a really big game, and instead of constantly dividing the community between titles, you just have like one big, wonderful, hugboxy community.
I don't know, June Ting, do you play any FPS games and stuff like that, or are you mostly...
No, I absolutely hate FPS games. I am really bad with the twitch reflexes. About the farthest I got with FPSs is really Halo, and
So then you must hate Dust 514, which is our next topic.
I honestly feel kind of indifferent about it. I mean, I am more of a fan of PC FPSs than console FPSs, but in general, I kind of don't really play FPSs. So I'm looking forward to seeing whether or not I might be able to play Legion. That would be kind of cool. But as it is, I probably will never touch Dust because it's on a freaking console and I can't use a controller.
So yeah, speaking of Dust, like I said, Dust 514 is our next topic, in which the Council of Planetary Management, which is the Council of Stellar Management equivalent for Dust, in which players vote for a certain number of people to represent them on important business decisions with CCP, which sometimes CCP won't even listen to. They're holding the first elections for the game after about a year of having CPM 0 in action and having just recently gotten rid of one of their CPM members. It's an interesting announcement for CCP because they have a lot of interesting requirements for the players because it is a free-to-play game. And it's also intriguing in the sense that Legion was announced and it looks like Dust might be moving to PC most likely. So, Teg, you have the info on that, right?
So the way that the CPM stuff is going is they're going to do an election, and much like the CSM election, it's going to be single transferable vote. There's a whole bunch of like passport requirements and stuff. The big ones being you need to be able to travel to China, aka just make sure you have a passport in good standing, and you need to have had a Dust account for 3 months, and I believe, although I'm not entirely sure, that they also have a requirement on like you need to played a certain amount of time of Dust, just because, you know, since it's a free-to-play game, instead of like having to pay for a subscription, there's sort of like you can just install it, have the account, have it not be active, not like actively using it, right? But you'll have it for 3 months and then apply. So, But yeah, that seems to. It's basically they're running it the exact same way that the CSM runs it. The big thing that they'll probably be doing with CPM1 is using it to set up the structure, because CPM0 is sort of like an emergency thing more so than like a big a big influence or supposed big influence like CSM is. So I expect CPM1 will have to deal a lot with like getting their organization set up and things like that. So, oh, here it is. Sorry, any Dust 514 player who has owned an account for more than 90 days and has logged in for more than 60 hours of playtime will be eligible to vote. And presumably, in order to run, you have to be eligible to vote. So you have to have 180 days, so 6 months, and logged at least 60 hours of playtime in order to run, and then 90 days in order to vote.
That's an interesting requirement, but I don't know. From what I'm reading is from the announcement that CPM1 will have limited involvement with Project Legion, and that's kind of interesting because I would imagine a lot of people want to make sure that Project Legion, if it becomes a real thing, doesn't end up the same way that CPM or Dust 514 ended up, given that CCP Shanghai have made some really questionable calls with some things.
Yeah, and there's a lot of problems, and I'm kind of hoping that CPM1 can get them on track. I mean, CPM0 has been good. I just don't think that CCP has paid much attention to them because they haven't had like the Jita riots for Dust.
Well, there's no way to do anything like that in Dust.
Yeah,
it's a very limited game.
To be fair, though, they backed down from the initial saying of, oh, Legion is going to have nothing to do with Dust, goodbye to all of your progression, and then they backpedaled the next day in response to riots from the community. So, some of that may be attributable to the CPM, and some of it may not be, but there is some element of CCP bending and listening when it does matter.
Yeah, what's also interesting is that CPM1 will not be flown to FanFest by CCP like the CSM is, as far as I understand that whole business setup or that deal. But they will be taken to the CPM Summit in Shanghai, which is a fairly expensive thing, depending on where in the world you're from, especially if the guy's like coming from Europe or Eastern USA. It's fairly expensive. It's like a couple $1,000s just to get them there, not including lodging. So, CPM is going to be interesting. When they announced it last year, it was a nice thing to have because players should always be able to work with the developers on a game, especially an MMO like Eve, and I guess subsequently Dust. But I don't know. Like CPM just hasn't really. To me, CPM has not really done anything of notable value. But so is like CSM8 didn't really seem to come across as useful. But I'm pretty certain they have done things just all under NDA and shit.
I think part of that is really that when CCP doesn't release something, the CSM doesn't really get to take credit for killing it.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing I kind of wish they would, as a company, CCP would move away from. It's like, listen, we had this really terrible idea, but thanks to you, the players, we fixed it. But they don't really seem to be willing to do that. It's more, we had this idea, we've changed it, and that's it. And I don't know. It's kind of frustrating because, on a previous episode of Water Cooler, Gratz said that he doesn't vote because, the CSM hasn't really done anything of value and it's not really what it should be for. And I've heard that a similar series of comments against the CSM setup by other people outside of, various groups. So it's, I don't know, the CSM CPM thing is kind of interesting in the sense that it's useful, but it doesn't seem to be always used,
No, and I pretty much agree. And it'll be interesting to see where they take it. But for now, it's just kind of it's kind of just floating out there, right? And but to sort of move on to a better topic, the Eve history book. So since both of you are much more knowledgeable of Eve history than I am, let's hear about how excited you are for this Eve history book.
I actually am excited for this, mostly because I like history. I like Eve. I like Eve's history. It's something worth keeping track of, and a guy who's actually going to go through the entire history of nullsec politics and stuff like that. At least that's what he's primarily focusing on. He said he would talk about low sec and high sec stuff, but I think he wants to more so focus on the player alliances and quote unquote kingdoms. It'll be interesting.
I really hope he doesn't ignore Wormhole Space, because Wormhole Space definitely has a lot of interesting stories. I know Rooks and Kings have done a really great job of telling about their feud with After Harmonics, but I want to see that in the book, right? But no, I think that it'll be really, really interesting, because actually I have only been playing Eve for 2 years, so I missed out on a lot of the kind of really old history of Eve. So it's kind of going to be really interesting to actually read written down all in one place, kind of all of the great empires that rose and fell, because I never really lived through that firsthand, and I kind of like to hear about it in a more organized format than just kind of drips and drabs from people that happen to tell me stories from when they were a young pod pilot.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting too, is that the guy wanted a Kickstarter goal of only $12,500. And he ended up making $95,000 plus in the goal. So I think it's gonna be cool. He said it's not gonna be out until 2015, but it's a worthwhile cause and effort, at least in my opinion. So it's also by a guy who's actually written a fair amount in press about Eve specifically, for Penny Arcade Report, Polygon. I think he also did some stuff for Rock Paper Shotgun or something.
Yeah, it's he's done a bunch of gaming history work before, so he definitely knows what he's doing. I think the big thing people are worried about is people trying to twist the historical narrative, and I personally not too worried about it. I'm sure he's going to be professional. He's going to be able to handle it, but there's legitimate cause for concern there.
There's always cause for concern with that, but it's also the same deal with us doing our news reports. There's always cause for concern that we're being fed bullshit.
See also the article that we had a couple of weeks ago about bias in the news, and talked about kind of the ways in which TMC is biased and ways in which other sites are biased that are kind of unavoidable no matter how hard we try.
Yeah, and I think it's really up to the writer, especially in this case, and in our cases where we do our best to find all the details and only present the details as they are and where we get the details, and then leave it up to the readers to make their own decision. Well, yeah, it's bullshit, or oh no, that's not real.
And we also try to have at least several people from different opposing organizations look at a piece that may be controversial, and then get maybe one or two people that are completely unaffiliated to see the piece and see it from a fresh perspective. So I think we here at TMC do a pretty good job of managing that, and I'm pretty sure that the guy that's doing the history book is going to do a good job. He's a good writer. He knows what he's doing. And I'm sure that he'll be able to see past the propaganda, revisionist history stuff that everybody is going to be trying to pull over on him.
Yeah, and he's probably going to be going through various channels, both publicly and behind the scenes, where he's not really using his name. He's maybe getting someone that he knows to help him out or stuff like that, and that's going to be it's going to be a way he can possibly limit the influence of revisionist history and propaganda. But yeah, I think that's about it for this week's episode. Yeah, we don't have anything else to really talk about. June Ting, thank you for stopping by.
Of course, it was a pleasure.
And you can always see her fine work as an editor and I believe you've written some articles for the site, right?
No, I haven't yet, actually. I've been meaning to, but it turns out that running an alliance and being an editor and writing is, at the same time, is very, very hard. So I've focused on mostly making sure that articles go out, in fact, with as minimum of a level of bias as we can. That's my primary focus with the site.
Oh, okay. Well, you could always write an article on what it's like to run an alliance, because that's one thing I think a lot of people don't always really know how terrible of an experience that is.
What it's like to run Hero.
Oh, I have no illusions. I don't run Hero. It's a madhouse that mostly self-organizes. I just run my little part.
But yeah, so thank you for stopping by. Tag, as usual, thanks for coming by. And for more video game news, reviews, guides, and videos, visit thematani.com.